In the quiet village of Nenj, nestled between thick palm forest and rolling hills, lived a young woman named Zay. She was known far and wide, not for her skills or kindness, but for her breathtaking beauty. People said the gods must have carved her face with care, for her skin was smooth as river stones, and her eyes sparkled like morning dew. But behind her beauty lived something darker, discontent. While other village girls woke up early to fetch water, sweep the compound, or tend to cassava fields, Zay stayed in bed, dreaming. Her mother, Mama Modo, would scold her daily. "Zay, the sun is already up and you've not even touched the broom." But Zay only rolled over and replied, "Mama, I was not born to suffer. I was born to be a queen. And queens don't sweep floors." Her father, Baba Ikin, a humble wood carver, tried to guide her gently. "Zay, beauty fades. But a good name and strong hands last forever." But Zay was not listening. Her mind was somewhere far away, in glittering cities where women like her were waited on, dressed in silk, and showered with gold. Zay's village was full of hardworking men who admired her and sent elders to ask for her hand. Chaik, a fisherman with a heart as big as the lake, was one. Omari, the blacksmith's son who had just built his own house, was another. But Zay turned them all down. "Too poor," she would whisper. "Too dusty. Too simple." The village women gossiped, shaking their heads. That girl's pride will finish her one day. And they were right to worry. One evening, after a heated argument with her parents, Zay packed her bag and left. She told them she was going to the city to find her destiny. Her mother wept at the gate. "Zay, don't chase wind with your two hands." But Zay didn't even look back. She took a bus to the capital city, Kaliwa, a place of tall buildings, fast cars, and bright lights. Her cousin Nene welcomed her into a tiny one-room apartment and tried to help her find work. "Zay, come and learn tailoring with me. I'll teach you for free." "You want me to sew clothes? With these nails?" Zay laughed. She refused every offer that required sweat or patience. She wanted money, but not work. One afternoon, while walking through a bustling market, Zay met Afia. Afia was unlike any woman Zay had ever seen. She wore a silk wrapper that flowed like water and gold earrings that touched her shoulders. Her perfume lingered in the air long after she passed. She stepped out of a black SUV, bought mangoes with crisp notes, and walked like the world owed her. Zay couldn't help herself. "Excuse me, sister, you look so beautiful. Are you a movie star?" Afia laughed, flashing white teeth. "No, darling. I just know how to live well." The two women talked over drinks in a rooftop cafe. Afia was charming, bold, and full of stories. "You don't get this life by working hard," she said. "You get it by being smart." She explained how she met an old, rich man who adored her and gave her everything: jewelry, cars, even a boutique in her name. Zay's eyes widened. "But how? Where do you find such men?" Afia leaned closer and whispered. "They are everywhere, Zay. Especially here in Kaliwa. These old men are rich, lonely, and looking for a beautiful girl to spoil." She studied Zay carefully, then smiled. You are perfect. With a little polish, you can live like a queen." And so began Zay's transformation. Afia took her under her wing. She taught her how to walk in heels, speak softly yet confidently, and how to smile without looking desperate. Never chase them. Let them chase you. Zay followed every word like scripture. She changed her clothes, her perfume, even the way she laughed. She began to attend events Afia invited her to, business dinners, charity balls, and exclusive lounges where rich men gathered. Each time she returned to Nene's apartment, Zay would drop a fancy bag on the bed and say, "Soon, I won't be coming back here." But not everything was glitter and gold. Some of the men she met only wanted one thing and offered little in return. Zoe learned to say no and wait. Afia warned her. Be patient. The real prize is not a dinner or a dress. It's the man who puts you in his will. Then, one evening, Afia came home smiling. I have found the one for you. Zoe sat up. Who? Afia grinned like a cat that had caught a fat rat. His name is Elder Musa. He is one of the wealthiest landowners in the city. A widower. No children. No family. Just gold and houses. And guess what? He likes you already. Zoe's heart thumped like a village drum. Me? Yes, you. We will go see him tomorrow. So go to bed and dream of diamonds. That night, Zoe stared at the ceiling of Nene's apartment, a soft smile on her lips. In her mind, she was already walking barefoot across marble floors, servants opening doors for her, her name etched in gold above a mansion gate. She did not know, the dream she was chasing would one day become a nightmare. But for now, Zoe was only focused on one thing. Becoming the queen she believed she deserved to be. The next day, the sun rose bright over the city of Kaliwa, but Zoe barely noticed. She was too busy staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her makeup was perfect, her hair curled just right, and her dress, a silky green one Afia had picked out, hugged her like a promise. You must look expensive to attract money, Afia had said. By the time they reached the Golden Oasis Hotel, Zoe's hands were trembling slightly. Afia squeezed her fingers gently. Relax. Smile. Don't try too hard. Just be desirable. They entered the private lounge, and there he was, Elder Musa. He sat alone at a corner table, wearing a white linen kaftan and brown leather slippers. His grey beard was neatly trimmed, and his fingers sparkled with rings. But what struck Zoe most was his gentle smile, warm, soft, and calm like a river in dry season. Afia approached with confidence. Musa, meet Zoe, the sunshine I told you about. Elder Musa stood up slowly and bowed slightly. Oh. I see now why the sun refused to set today. Zoe smiled, flattered. His voice was deep but soothing. He didn't rush his words. Everything about him moved with grace. They sat. They talked. They laughed. And Zoe played her role perfectly. For the next few weeks, Elder Musa and Zoe saw each other often. He took her to dinner at quiet, expensive restaurants. He gifted her bracelets made of real ivory, shoes from Paris, and a phone that cost more than her cousin's rent. But unlike other men, Elder Musa never rushed her. He never made demands. He listened to her talk. He asked about her dreams. He treated her like she mattered. I was married once, he told her one evening, his eyes clouded with memory. She died 10 years ago. Since then, I have lived in silence. Until you. Zoe blinked, not expecting such tenderness. He was nothing like the men Afia warned her about. You deserve peace, he said. And I just want to give that to someone again. Zoe felt something strange stirring in her chest. Was it guilt? Was it real emotion? Or just confusion? But her plan stayed the same, marry him. Inherit everything. Live like royalty. The city now whispered about her. That girl with the rich old man. Some envied her. Some mocked her. But Zoe didn't care. She had what she wanted, wealth, comfort, attention. One afternoon, Elder Musa invited her to his estate, a vast compound outside the city. The walls were high. The gate was golden. Inside were flower gardens, mango trees, fountains, and a 3-story mansion with marble floors and rooms she couldn't count. Zoe walked like someone in a dream. One day, she whispered to herself, "This will all be mine." At dinner that night, Musa stood up, took her hand, and said, "Zay, I'm an old man. I've had my joy, my sorrow, and my share of wealth. But what I've never had is a second chance at love. I want to share my life with you. Will you marry me?" Zay's eyes widened, but only for a second. Then she smiled, her voice soft and sweet. "Yes, yes, Elder Musa. I will." Their wedding happened quickly. It was a grand affair held in the gardens of his estate. Guests came in fine clothes, dancing under string lights and the music of village drummers. Zay wore a dress that sparkled like morning dew, and gold jewelry heavy enough to bruise. She smiled for photos. She danced with guests. But deep inside, her thoughts were already counting the riches. But not everything glittered. After the guests left and the music died down, Zay sat on the edge of the bed in her new room, wide, silent, and cold. Elder Musa came in quietly, smiling as always. He held her hand. "We are husband and wife now," he said softly. "But there's no rush. We will grow into this. Slowly." Zay nodded, unsure how to feel. He kissed her forehead and left her alone. Days passed. Zay moved into the rhythm of her new life. She had housekeepers, drivers, chefs. She ate what she wanted, went where she liked. Elder Musa traveled often, managing his lands and businesses, but he always returned with something for her: silk from the north, perfumes from across the sea. He even built a small art studio when she once mentioned liking to paint as a girl. He never raised his voice. He never treated her unkindly. Yet, Zay couldn't bring herself to truly love him. The idea of sharing a bed with a man old enough to be her grandfather made her skin crawl. Every time he gently tried to get closer, Zay would flinch. She found excuses. He didn't complain. Maybe she needs time, he told himself. But Zay was growing restless. "What's the point of being rich if I feel trapped?" she asked Afia one evening. Afia sipped her wine and stared at her. "You have everything. Money, comfort, power. What more do you want?" "Freedom," Zay whispered. "I feel like I've sold my soul." Afia leaned in. "Then buy it back. But be smart." Zay didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. 1 month later, Zay received her first document from Elder Musa's lawyer. It was a will update. "You are now my only beneficiary," Musa said. "Everything I own will become yours if anything happens to me." Zay held the document with shaking hands. It was now real. The house, the cars, the lands, the bank accounts. All hers, one day. Her heart pounded. But not with joy, with temptation. Something dark began to whisper to her. And the look Afia gave her that night said everything without a word. "You have what you wanted," Afia said. "But you also have a choice now." And just like that, Zay stood at a crossroad. She could wait and endure. Or she could end the wait and claim her prize early. She looked around the mansion, at the silk curtains and gold frames, and wondered. How far would I go to keep this forever? At first, everything seemed perfect. Zay's face was on the cover of city gossip blogs. Young beauty marries rich elder. The queen of Musa's mansion. People online both praised and mocked her, but she didn't care. She had the fame, the status, and the luxury she had always dreamed of. She walked through the mansion like a queen. Every morning, a maid brought her fresh juice on a silver tray. Her clothes were custom-made. Her hair was always styled. She even had her own driver. But as the excitement of the wedding faded, something else began to take its place. A slow, quiet dread. Elder Musa, though kind and calm, began expecting more from Zay. He wanted them to act like a true married couple, not just in public, but in private. At first, he was patient. He would hold her hand, touch her shoulder, or sit close to her when they watched TV in the evening. "You are my wife now," he would say gently. "Let me hold you." But Zoe always pulled away. She started locking her bedroom door at night, saying she was too tired or unwell. Musa never forced her. But over time, his smile began to fade. One night, after dinner, he spoke in a low, serious voice. "Zay, I know I'm older. I know you married me for comfort, not love. But I still have needs. I still have feelings. I have been nothing but kind to you." Zay lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm not ready." Musa nodded, but his disappointment hung in the air like heavy smoke. Weeks turned into months. Every weekend, Elder Musa returned from his business trips expecting closeness. He began insisting gently, then firmly. He reminded her of everything he had done for her. "I've given you my name, my home, my wealth. Can't I ask for just one thing in return?" Zay felt sick at the thought. She dreaded his returns. The act of sharing a bed with him was unbearable. His body was old and weak. His breath wheezed at night. His touch made her feel like a trapped bird. Even worse was the pain. Physical pain. After each night, she would lie in bed aching, tears rolling down her cheeks silently as the maid knocked in the morning with breakfast. She went back to Afia, desperate for a solution. "I can't do this," Zay whispered. "It hurts. It's disgusting. I feel like I'm dying slowly." But Afia didn't show much sympathy. "You wanted wealth. You got it. Nothing comes free, Zay." Zay looked at her friend with tired eyes. "There has to be another way." Afia leaned back in her chair and studied her. "There is always another way. But are you brave enough to take it?" Zay frowned. "What do you mean?" Afia didn't answer. "Not yet." She just sipped her drink and smiled. Back at the mansion, Elder Musa noticed the change in Zay. Her laughter was gone. She rarely left her room. She refused dinner some nights. She didn't smile at him the way she used to. He tried to fix things. He booked a vacation. He ordered her favorite perfume. He hired a private dance teacher because she once said she liked music. But nothing worked. One night, he stood at the balcony, staring at the stars. "Maybe I was foolish," he said aloud. "Maybe love doesn't come with age. Maybe I was just lonely." Zoe stood quietly behind the door, listening. And something inside her softened, but only for a moment. Then she remembered the nights. The pain. The suffocation. And her heart hardened again. That weekend, while organizing some of Musa's drawers, Zay found a thick envelope from his lawyer. It was his final will, now updated to leave everything to her. Her name was on every property, every account, every asset. The only thing stopping her from having full control was one sentence at the bottom. "To be inherited upon my natural death." Zay stared at that line for a long time. "Natural death," she whispered. And for the first time, a thought crept into her mind, a thought so dark it scared her at first. But it refused to leave. That night, Zay returned to Afia's apartment, pale and trembling. "He gave me everything," she said quietly. "But I feel like I'm in a cage made of gold." Afia poured her a drink. "You want out?" Zay nodded. "I can't take it anymore. I'd rather be poor and free than rich and broken." Afia looked at her for a long moment. Then, in a voice as smooth as silk, she said, "Then listen carefully." She opened her drawer and pulled out a small, elegant bottle filled with a clear liquid. "This is Kolonji leaf extract. Strong. Odorless. Tasteless. A few drops in a hot drink, and a heart attack." Zay gasped, covering her mouth. You want me to poison him? Ophia shrugged. You want to suffer for the next 20 years? Or you want freedom in a week? What if I get caught? You won't. You're his wife. He's old. No one will ask questions. People die every day. And when he does, everything becomes yours, legally. Zoe's hands trembled as she reached for the bottle. I don't know if I can. Ophia looked her dead in the eye. Then go back. Endure the pain. Keep crying into your pillow. Or choose peace. That night, Zoe returned home. She looked at the grand hallway. The golden chandelier. The polished floor. The walls lined with her wedding photos. And she clutched the bottle tight in her hand. Upstairs, Elder Musa was already asleep, his breathing slow and deep. Zoe sat on the bed beside him, staring. I didn't plan this, she whispered. I just wanted a good life. She stared at the bottle again. And with shaking fingers, she slid it into her drawer, not ready yet. But something had changed inside her. The seed had been planted. And soon, the storm would follow. The days that followed were filled with silence, but not peace. Zoe walked through the mansion like a shadow. She barely spoke to the maids. She avoided Elder Musa's eyes. At night, she locked herself in the guest room, claiming headaches, stomach aches, even spiritual attacks. But none of that was true. Her real sickness was inside her heart, a war between guilt and greed. The bottle of poison sat quietly in her drawer, wrapped in cloth, whispering her name each time she opened it to take a scarf or earring. She couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. The air in the mansion felt heavy. Her skin crawled at the sound of Elder Musa's footsteps in the hallway. Each time he smiled at her, she wanted to scream. Each time he touched her shoulder, she wanted to run. But still, she couldn't let go of the dream. One morning, she called Ophia in secret. I can't do it, she said, her voice shaking. Ophia sighed loudly. Then stop calling me and suffer. You asked for a way out, I gave it to you. But what if someone finds out? Zoe, no one will. He's old. He already has high blood pressure. All you have to do is wait until his next attack and help it along. The world would think it was natural. Zoe was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, what if I lose everything? You'll lose more if you stay, Ophia replied coldly. He will break you, slowly. One night, you'll wake up and you won't even recognize yourself. Zoe said nothing. The line went dead. That night, Elder Musa returned from a trip looking tired. He walked slower than usual, holding his back. I'm getting old, my love, he joked. Maybe this body has done all it can. Zoe smiled faintly. You're still strong. Maybe, he chuckled. But I know I don't have many years left. And when I go, I want to know you'll be taken care of. She looked at him, heart pounding. I'll be fine. Good, he said softly. That's all I want. He kissed her forehead and walked to the study. That night, Zoe couldn't stop shaking. She pulled the bottle from the drawer and stared at it for hours. Her heart screamed, don't do it, but her mind whispered, it's your only chance. And greed, like a thief in the dark, crept in. The next evening, she decided it would be the night. She prepared dinner herself for the first time. She told the cook to take the night off, saying she wanted to surprise her husband. She made his favorite dish, jollof rice with goat meat, and poured his favorite wine. In the kitchen, with trembling hands, she unscrewed the poison bottle and added 3 drops into his wine glass. She almost vomited. Her palms were sweaty. Her knees weak. But her face smiled like nothing was wrong. Elder Musa came downstairs in his long robe, looking pleased. Oh, you cooked. This is a rare gift. Only for you, Zoe said sweetly. They sat at the candlelit table. He said a short prayer, then began eating with joy. "MMM. You should cook more often." Zoe forced a smile, watching his every bite. Then, she handed him the glass of wine, the poison one. "To your good health," she said, raising her own glass. But just before he took a sip, he paused. He looked at the wine. Then at her. "Zoe," he said softly. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Why now? Why did you suddenly decide to cook and serve me like this?" Her throat tightened. I wanted to do something special." He smiled gently. "That's kind of you. Truly." Then, slowly, he raised the glass again. But just before it touched his lips, he stopped. He set it down. Zoe's heart dropped. "Actually," he said, "let me get my medicine first. I forgot to take it earlier." He stood up and walked to his study. Zoe sat frozen, the air choking her. Moments later, he returned, but not alone. 2 men in plain black suits followed him. Their faces were hard, ice cold. Elder Musa looked at Zoe. Not with kindness. Not with anger. But with deep, deep sadness. "Zoe," he said softly, "do you know what this is?" He held up a hidden camera, small, black, and blinking. Zoe's heart stopped. "I had it installed last week, after Afia came to me with concerns." Zoe's mouth dropped open. "What?" "She told me everything," he said, placing the camera on the table. "She showed me the bottle. She said you were desperate, that you couldn't take the marriage anymore." Zoe stood up, trembling. She lied." "No, Zoe. He saved me." The 2 men stepped forward. "These are private investigators. We needed evidence. Now we have it." Zoe's legs gave way, and she sank to the floor. "I didn't mean to." "You meant to kill me," Musa said quietly. "I trusted you. I loved you. And you served me poison." He walked to the door and opened it. Uniformed officers entered. One of them handcuffed Zoe, reading her rights. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just cried. Softly. Like a child caught stealing. That night, the city buzzed with news. Socialite wife arrested for poisoning elder statesman. The same blogs that once praised her beauty now posted her mugshot. The same voices that once called her a queen now called her a monster. At the police station, as she sat alone in a cold cell, Zoe whispered the same words over and over. "I didn't want this. I didn't want this." But it was too late. The plan had been made. The poison had been poured. And Karma had arrived. The holding cell was small, with cracked walls and a single dim light bulb swinging overhead. Zoe sat on the cold bench, still wearing the elegant green dress she had cooked in. Her makeup had melted from her tears. Her hands, cuffed in front of her, trembled uncontrollably. Her mind spun like a broken wheel. Everything had fallen apart. Her dream of wealth, power, and freedom had turned into a nightmare of steel bars and disgrace. The next morning, the guards led her to an interrogation room. A tired-looking officer sat across from her, holding a file with her name on it, Zoe Nkem, attempted murder. He spoke in a calm, even voice. "You are lucky Elder Musa survived. He never drank the wine." Zoe lowered her head. "I wasn't going to go through with it," she whispered. "I was scared. I froze." The officer studied her. "But you poured the poison." She didn't answer. "You prepared it. You served it. You knew what it was. You had every intention of killing him." Still no answer. Zoe's heart felt like it was being squeezed. No words could save her now. Not lies. Not tears. The officer stood up and said, "You'll be transferred to city court tomorrow. Prepare yourself." That night in her cell, Zoe thought about her parents in Denge village. What would they say when they heard? What would her father feel, he who once told her that true wealth came from hard work? She thought about Nene, her cousin, who gave her a place to stay. And she thought about Afia, her so-called friend. The one who gave her the poison, then sold her out for money. Zoe's heart burned with betrayal. But somewhere deep inside, a part of her whispered, "You chose this path." The courtroom was packed the next day. News had spread like wildfire. Everyone wanted to witness the fall of the glamorous city bride who tried to kill her rich husband. Photographers waited at the gate. Journalists whispered outside. Inside, Zoe sat in the dock, head bowed, her green dress replaced with a plain brown prison gown. Chains clinked at her ankles. She felt like an animal on display. The judge entered, followed by lawyers and witnesses. And then, Elder Musa walked in. The room went silent. He wore a clean white robe. His beard was freshly combed. But there was no smile on his face. Only sorrow. He took the stand, placed his hand on the Bible, and began to speak. "I did not come here to curse her," he said slowly. "I came here because the truth must be told. Zoe is my wife. I loved her. I opened my heart to her. I gave her everything I could, without asking for much in return. But love, when mixed with lies, becomes poison. And in this case, it almost killed me." Gasps echoed through the court. Zoe sobbed silently, her face buried in her hands. The prosecutor presented the hidden camera footage. It clearly showed Zoe pouring liquid into the wine glass. The video had sound too. It captured her nervous breathing, her footsteps, her whispered, "To your good health." There was no escape. The poison bottle, recovered from her drawer, was tested and confirmed to be lethal. Her fingerprints were on it. The case was sealed. When the judge asked her to speak, Zoe stood up slowly. She looked weak, like her spirit had already left her body. "I was foolish," she said softly. "I thought beauty was enough. I thought money would solve everything. I let greed and pain blind me. And now, I've lost everything." She turned to Musa. "I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm sorry." Elder Musa looked at her, his face unreadable. After a long silence, he nodded. "You don't need to suffer forever," he said. "But you must face the consequences." The judge gave the verdict. "Zoinkem, you are sentenced to 12 years in prison for attempted murder." The courtroom buzzed with reactions. Some cheered. Some gasped. Others whispered. Zoe didn't move. The guards led her away. In prison, the days dragged like chains. At first, she refused to talk to anyone. She cried often. She couldn't eat. But slowly, the hard walls and simple life began to change her. She started helping in the prison library. Then she joined a group that helped other women learn to read. She listened to their stories, many just like hers, full of pain, betrayal, and regret. She began to speak during counseling sessions. And for the first time in her life, she was honest. 3 years later, Zoe received a letter. It was from Elder Musa. "I heard about the work you're doing in the prison. That is good. Growth comes from facing our shame and walking through it. May you keep walking." Zoe cried as she read it. Not out of sadness, but because someone still saw value in her, even after everything. Her story became known inside the prison. The guards often used her name when talking to new inmates. "Don't end up like Zoe," they would say. Or better yet, be like the Zoe she's becoming now. And slowly, she began to rebuild. Not with gold. Not with lies. But with truth. With change. With humility. It had been 4 years since the court sentenced Zoe to prison. 4 long years behind tall walls and iron gates. Days filled with routines, rules, and silence. But inside those walls, something unexpected had happened. Zoe had changed. She no longer wore makeup. Her nails were no longer polished. The fancy shoes and perfumes were gone. But in their place grew something far more valuable: humility and purpose. She woke early each day, not to chase beauty or money, but to teach. She taught young inmates how to read, write, and speak with confidence. She cleaned the chapel without complaint. She led weekly group discussions on healing and forgiveness. For the first time in her life, she was becoming someone her father would have been proud of. One afternoon, the prison warden called her to the office. Zoe thought it was a disciplinary court, but when she walked in, she saw a familiar face. Mama Model. Her mother. Older. Weaker. But still strong in spirit. Zoe froze. Her eyes welled up with tears. Mama, she whispered. Mama Model said nothing at first. She just walked up and held her daughter tightly, her voice breaking. My daughter. I raised you to know better. But I never stopped praying for you. Zoe fell to her knees, sobbing. I failed you. I failed myself. I thought beauty was a blessing, but I used it like a weapon. Her mother lifted her chin and looked into her eyes. You are not the same girl who left our village. I can see it in your eyes. You have suffered, yes. But suffering only becomes shame if you refuse to learn. Zoe hugged her again, her heart beating like a drum. That visit stayed with her for weeks, giving her new strength. Another year passed. And then, one day, a letter came from the Board of Clemency. It stated that due to her exemplary behavior, leadership, and impact on fellow inmates, Zoe was now eligible for early release after serving 5 years. Her hands trembled as she read the letter again and again. She would be free. But more than freedom from prison, it was freedom from her past that she craved. On the day of her release, the prison staff gathered in the courtyard. Some shook her hand. Others just nodded with respect. The same guards who once chained her now unlocked the gate. She stepped out into the sunlight, eyes blinking against the brightness. She had walked in as a greedy girl. She walked out as a woman of courage. Back in Nenge village, her return caused a stir. Many had forgotten her. Others had only heard whispers about the girl who tried to kill her husband. But when they saw her now, modest dress, head bowed, soft-spoken, they saw someone transformed. She went straight to her father's grave and sat quietly for hours, speaking through her tears. Baba. I am sorry. You won me. You tried to guide me. I didn't listen. But I will spend the rest of my life making you proud. Zoe began to help young girls in the village. She opened a small reading center with help from local women. She told her story openly, honestly, and without shame. Don't trade your future for fast comfort, she told them. Don't use beauty to steal. Build your life with wisdom, not shortcuts. Mothers began sending their daughters to her. Fathers began inviting her to speak at youth gatherings. Even the village chief came to see her one day and said, You were once our shame, Zoe. Now, you are our voice of wisdom. One evening, she received another unexpected letter. From Elder Musa. Zoe, I have forgiven you. I never married again. But I never hated you. I only hoped that you would find your light again. I heard about the work you're doing. It makes me smile. May peace follow you. Zoe folded the letter slowly and placed it in her wooden box. Tears fell down her cheeks, but they were no longer tears of sorrow. They were tears of healing. That weekend, the villagers held a storytelling night. The theme was lessons from life. When it was Zoe's turn to speak, she stood up and looked at the crowd. Old faces. Young eyes. Curious minds. And she said, "Once, I thought the world owed me something because I was beautiful. I chased gold and forgot my soul. I tried to cheat life, and life caught me. But pain became my teacher. And now, I teach others." She paused, letting the silence settle. This is not a story of shame. It is a story of change. And change is the greatest gift a person can give to themselves. The crowd clapped. Some even cried. Zoe sat down, heart light and full. She was no longer the girl who used an old man for his wealth. She was now the woman who taught others the cost of doing so. And that truth, that redemption, was worth more than all the riches in the world. Years passed, but Zoe's story never faded. In the village of Nenj, her name once stirred shame and gossip. But now, it was spoken with respect. Mothers pointed her out to their daughters. Elders nodded as she passed. Even strangers came from nearby towns to hear her speak. She had become a living folktale, not because of what she did wrong, but because of what she chose to become after the fall. Zoe never married again. Not because she couldn't, but because she chose to focus her energy on something greater, restoring lives. She opened a community home for girls who had been abandoned, abused, or misled. She called it House of Second Chances. There, young women learned how to read and write. They learned how to grow food, how to sew, how to run a small business. But more importantly, they learned self-worth. Every Saturday evening, they gathered around the fire, and Zoe would tell them her story. Not with shame, but with truth. "I thought marrying a rich man would solve all my problems. But I didn't know that the greatest poverty is when your soul is empty and your heart is dishonest." She never spared herself in the telling. She told them about her greed, her lies, her mistakes, the poison, the prison. And she told them about Elder Musa. "He forgave me," she would say. "Even after I tried to destroy him. That forgiveness gave me a second chance to live a life that matters." One day, Zoe received a message. Elder Musa had passed away peacefully in his sleep. He had left a note with his lawyer, instructing that a small part of his estate be given to Zoe's Girl Center. "She gave back more than I ever gave her," the note said. Zoe wept, not just for his death, but for the man who had once seen something in her when even she did not. She traveled to the city and stood at his grave alone. No camera. No crowd. Just flowers, silence, and a whisper. "Thank you for everything." Back in the village, Zoe's life moved on quietly. She wore simple clothes, ate from her own farm, and smiled more often than she ever had in her youth. One day, a group of traveling storytellers from the capital arrived. They were collecting real-life tales for a new radio series called Voices of Africa. They asked Zoe for permission to tell her story. She agreed, but with one condition. "Tell it exactly as it happened. Don't make me a saint. Don't make him a villain. Tell the truth. The raw truth." They did. The episode aired weeks later. And across towns and villages, people gathered around radios to hear the tale of Zoe, the woman who used an old man for his wealth but was transformed by karma, forgiveness, and truth. In that story, listeners heard a warning. Don't chase fast riches. Don't sell your soul for silk and silver. What you gain through deceit, you will lose in pain. But they also heard hope. Even when you fall, you can rise again, if your heart is willing to change. And so, Zoe's name became legend. Not like the queens of ancient kingdoms. Not like warriors or prophets. but as a woman who fell hard and rose higher. A woman who turned her scars into stories, her shame into strength, and her mistake into a message. Moral of the story: true worth is not found in gold or comfort. It lives in wisdom, truth, and the courage to change. Even if you've lost your way, you can always come home to yourself.